Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Cory Singer. Today we're going to talk to you about positive mental attitude and how it affects your body. So we have think yourself into health, happiness, and wholeness. We'll go from there. So goals for tonight, understand how powerful your thoughts actually are. When I say about thoughts, I mean your words, your beliefs, and the visions that you have for yourself and for your life and for your body, and how that affects everything and are in creating in your physical world, in other words, your health, your happiness, and your life. So let's go from there. So what is a positive mental attitude? We're going to talk a lot about this term tonight, so let's go ahead and define it. So we have a mental and emotional attitude that focuses on the bright side of life and expects positive results. So expecting good things to happen into your life. Approaching life's challenges with a positive outlook. Does not necessarily mean avoiding or ignoring the bad things. Instead, it involves making the most of the potentially bad situations, trying to see the best in other people, and viewing yourself and your abilities in a positive light. We'll talk more about how bad, so quote unquote bad things can happen to us, but as long as we have the right focus, the right spin on things, we can actually change that idea in our mind. So we'll talk more about that later. When we're talking about the body, I'm going to go into what causes disease. And so we're talking about how thoughts affect our bodies. And let's go from there. So we break down the creation of disease into two different classifications. One of them being deficiency and one of them being toxicity. And deficiency, pretty much all that means is not enough of the good stuff going into your body. Toxicity means too much of the bad stuff, okay? So if I was going to give an example of this, we could use like an example of a cookie. A cookie needs a certain amount of things inside of it to be able to be, taste like a cookie. If it has all those things, it's going to function properly, including like, the eggs, the milk, or whatever you create cookies with. If you have missing the eggs out of there, the cookie's not going to turn out very well. Same being is if you put something inside of the cookie that's not supposed to be there, let's say ketchup or something, and that cookie comes out, it's really not going to taste too good. So the same thing can apply to your body when we're talking about actually our thoughts. If you have thoughts that are congruent with your values and your beliefs, they can actually act as a nutrient to your body. You have thoughts that are incongruent with your beliefs, those act as toxicity for your body, and we'll show more about that in a second. So if we're talking about how we can create health in the body, it comes down to sufficiency and purity. Sufficiency, if we go back to that cookie example, sufficiency means it has everything it needs. In other words, it has all those ingredients. Purity means none of the stuff that's not supposed to be in there. In other words, that ketchup never made it into the whipping basket there. So we're going to go, and we're talking about our thoughts, those positive mental attitude, and the thoughts that we have are actually act as nutrients inside of our body. And purity, in other words, we don't have any of those negative thoughts that are coming up. So one thing that we have to understand about the body is it can self-heal. And one example is just because it's a natural ecosystem, right? Same with this kind of waterfall here, right? You have nature, you have the waterfall. As long as we don't get in there and start polluting it, it's going to function the way that it's supposed to and have a proper diverse ecosystem right there. Same potential is there inside of our bodies, right? So if you cut yourself, your body is able to heal. You put a Band-Aid on that thing and you leave it alone and the body will heal up naturally. So we have to understand that the body can heal as long as it's given the opportunity to. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how thoughts are and create things inside of our life. Really the manifestation process. Thoughts are, if you just think about what thoughts are, they're just electrons passing through the brain. And if those electrons have mass attracts mass as well. So, but obviously it requires action if we're trying to create things in our life. Some of the newer kind of concepts that we've talked about since 1935, we've known that there's been entanglement within the field in the whole entire universe, right? So if you look at black holes, two different black holes, if you have one particle on this side, there's actually an ability for that particle to transfer through that black hole, through what's called like a wormhole, into another area. Same thing can apply on the quantum scale. In other words, the smallest scale possible. Now, they think that both that thing that's happening on the black hole scale is the same kind of principle that's happening on the quantum field. How does this apply to your life? The thoughts that we think are actually act almost as like tuning forks for specific things inside of our lives, right? So if we look at this example here, we got a tuning fork, you ding it, only one of those tuning forks which has the same resonance will vibrate in response to that ding. The other things that are not in response to it will not. In other words, if we're trying to entangle particles, bring things into our life, we want to make sure we're having the thoughts and the beliefs that are in alignment or in tune or in resonance with those same frequencies. Now, just kind of getting into some of the science behind like how our thoughts actually can affect reality. We're going to look here, right? So we have this study here, the random number generator and group meditation experiment. We're not going to read this whole thing, but pretty much what ended up happening was they took these people that were very, very good at meditating and actually thinking, I think they were monks. They had these people thinking about a certain number. Now they use these things called random number generators. What they do, these random number generators can, let's just say zeros and ones can be spit out, and it just randomly spits out a number, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, whatever. And it should be roughly equal 50-50, right, with these numbers being generated. What ends up happening, they did was they had these monks, they sat there, they meditated on the results of the outcome of that experiment. So, they had the random number generator in one room, the monks are in this room, and then they said, okay, everybody, I want you to focus on the number 0. And what ended up happening was these monks were able to, I think they were monks, I'm not sure exactly, they were able to concentrate on that number, and what ended up happening was it was actually scientifically and statistically shown that these people were able to alter the course of the results of that experiment. In other words, they were able to generate that 0 that they were focusing on. So with their thoughts alone, they were able to change what happened in that experiment. What was interesting enough too was they were actually able to do this into the future and some of these things going into the past. So they were able to think about and concentrate on a number of a future experiment, and actually were able to change the number there. They also thought about an experiment in the past. So before they read the results of one that was happening in the past, or a number generation experiment that happened in the past, they were actually able to alter the results of that experiment as well, which is kind of interesting. Now, kind of getting more into this, or just different examples of how our thoughts can actually affect matter. You look in here, we have Dr. Emoto. So he did these water experiments where so here's the quote here: "Water has a memory and carries within it our thoughts and prayers. As you yourself are water, no matter where you are, your prayers will be carried to the rest of the world." 75% water. And he was showing how different thoughts can actually alter and change the structure of the water itself, the water molecule itself. So they had these people think about the word thank you, and they took pictures of these frozen crystals of this water and just showed you the different geometric patterns that can actually result from this, right? So from thank you, wisdom, truth, eternal. So you can see angel has this nice halo on it. I love you, peace. And then when they started doing these other more negative emotions, like you fool or you make me sick, you could see that there's a very disruptive pattern that starts to come up into the water. Here's an interesting one. They showed polluted water before prayer, right? So these people they had them just polluted water, and then they actually had people pray over it, and the polluted water after the prayer, they saw these different geometric patterns, which were obviously, to me, look very beautiful. So if you're thinking about your body and the thoughts that you have in your daily life, it could actually affect it as well. Now, going into the nervous system, I like to give this example of how thoughts are either positively or negative affecting the body, right? So good thoughts. So I give this example of the roller coaster here. So we have two people, let's just say for this example, they're genetically identical. So obviously you can see that they're not genetically identical, but let's use this example of two people on a roller coaster, genetically identical. What you see here is one person's having a very negative time, right? They're afraid of the roller coaster. They go out and they have this terrible time. What ends up happening is a whole different set of responses happens inside of their body versus somebody that is having a good time in that experience. So we're going to talk a little bit about what those different experiences are. So the person that was having the bad time will be activating what's called the sympathetic nervous system. And what happens inside of the sympathetic nervous system? Cortisol rises, which if you look at that over time can lead to Cushing syndrome. Catecholamines rise. Heart rate rises, so that can lead to heart disease over time. Blood pressure rises. Vasoconstriction. Your blood glucose elevates, which can lead over time to diabetes. And also, along with that, insulin resistance starts to develop in these people. High blood lipids, high blood cholesterol, so noradrenaline increasing, increased clotting factor, muscle tension. I'm just going to kind of go through this. Protein degradation of muscles and connective tissues. So over time, joint damage, arthritis, sprains, strains, more of those things can be seen. Feelings of stress, anxiety, fear, depression, sensory sensitivity, in other words, chronic pain can start to develop from these kinds of things. Short-term memory loss, dementia, Alzheimer's, serotonin, cellular immunity decrease, so more ability or less ability to fight off infections, which can lead towards cancer and sicknesses. Decreased growth hormones, infertility, tumors, decreased bone formation like osteoporosis. So that's how our thoughts can actually, if you have these stressful thoughts, they can generate this cascades of stress, and over time can lead towards many diseases that we see in our society. Versus somebody that's having a positive experience in this experience of that roller coaster called life, right? So pretty much take all those things and flip them reverse, the opposite happens, right? So decreased blood pressure, decreased blood glucose, just to name a few. Increased cellular immunity, right? So less of a propensity to develop cancers and sicknesses, things like that. Increased bone formation. So the exact opposite will be true for somebody that's having a good experience or a positive outlook on life. So I want to get you guys to understand what actually epigenetics is, because it can play a role in your understanding. Because a lot of people in the past used to believe that your genetics were determinant of your future, which in some instances it actually is, but there's a very large degree that the way that we live our life actually affects our health. So how does that work, right? You have the gene, and I like to think of the epigenome almost like a composer, right? So what happens is epigenetics pretty much determines what part of the gene will actually be expressed into proteins, and the proteins are actually what create your body. Okay, so you have the genes and certain lifestyle factors, right? Food, exercise, mind state, air, all these different things that we talked about, as well as like we said, our mind will actually determine what parts of the gene will actually be expressed. So if we think of it in this composer example here, we have somebody that comes in and there's a composer. You have all the people out in the audience there, or in the symphony. The composer, as long as if he doesn't raise his staff to say, make the music will never come out of these composers, because they're following his cues. So if you're same thing with our gene, if the gene's there for, let's say, cancer, if you have the different lifestyle factors, they could actually make it so that cancer gene is actually repressed and never gets expressed in the body. Same with other types of disease, autoimmunity and things of that nature as well. So it really comes down a lot to how we live our lives. That's what epigenomes is. And you have here, it's just an example of this. These two mice are genetically identical and the same age, okay? While pregnant, the only difference between these two mice, which again, genetically identical, same age, was that while pregnant, both of their mothers were fed BPA, but different diets, okay? So this one here, this bigger, fatter, more yellowish mouse, the mother of this mouse received a normal mouse diet, okay? Versus this one, the mother of this mouse received a diet supplemented with choline, folic acid, betaine, and vitamin B12. So in other words, this mouse, the mom was given some stuff that actually could help the mouse be healthy. Now that makes sense, right? Because you think that what you put into your body would actually affect your health, and that actually does. But the same thing could be true for your thoughts. Now, how can we help our body here, right? So different cell types so this is called a stem cell. Stem cells can actually produce all these different parts of our bodies. So we're talking about these diseases, any kind of diseases that are out there, they all can be helped because we have these stem cells in our body that can actually go in and differentiate into different cells, right? Small intestines can be replaced in 2 to 4 days. Stomach can be replaced in 2 to 9 days. Blood neutrophils 1 to 5 days, and the list goes on and on and on. Almost the entire body can actually be regenerated, and your body can do this with stem cells, which come from inside of the bones, but also different cells inside the body. Back to thoughts. Okay, so one thing that I've seen that has been really kind of evident in how much our thoughts actually affect our body is an example of multiple personality disorders, right? So this is where people with different personalities exhibit different characters, and so you have somebody, one body, obviously the same body, they have different personalities within the same body. What they found was different personalities in that same body exhibited different bodily types. In other words, different reading prescriptions for different bodies. Like, so you can see this one has glasses where this one doesn't. Drug sensitivity. So they were able to inject one of these people, the same person, with a drug while they're in one personality, and they would have no sensitivity to it, no reaction. A couple days later, when that person's in a different personality, let's say it's Bob now versus John, Bob, same drug goes in and that person reacts to it. So how does that work out? So it shows that our mind can actually affect our body. Color blindness can change. Eye prescriptions, right? So they'd have the same person, trying to read the two different personalities in the same person, get different eye prescriptions. Different one have color blindness. Some of them have diabetes. Some of them don't. But it's again, it's the same person. So how does this work? It just shows you that our mind actually can control a lot of what's going on in our physiology. So what the reticular activating system is just a bundle of nerves at the base of our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information and allows you to find good information. So an example of this is, let's say that you had a certain dress that you were really thinking about and you really wanted to get, and you were going. Now this dress was there before, and you never really noticed it before, but as soon as you saw it in that magazine, that dress, you start to see everywhere. You start to see it on the person that's walking down the street. You start to see it everywhere you go. It's like, well, that dress was probably there the whole time, but you were never really aware of it. So that's just one of the examples that I can give you. There's hundreds of examples. So let's go from there. Now, the subconscious mind is another concept we all have to understand. The average person has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. Of those, 80% are negative and 95% are the same before. Now, this is because the subconscious mind is kind of controlling and running your life. An example of a behavior that is learned and passed on to the subconscious mind is if you're looking at, let's say, driving a car. When you first are trying to learn how to drive a car, you're in there and you have to sit there and you focus on each one of the steps. Eventually, you could do that. You could drive the car, you could do everything as part of that car, and you're not really even thinking about it. You can go for, the whole drive home you kind of get to the end of your drive, you're like, who was I? Well, I wasn't really even paying attention. And that's because the subconscious mind actually will take over for your body and run the show. That they found out is that the subconscious mind is running 90+% of, or experts say we live 95+% from our subconscious programs, okay? And where do these programs come from? They come from primarily developed for the first 7 years of life, okay? So the reason that this happens is because our brain waves are between alpha and theta, meditative and hypnotic. So in other words, first 7 years of your life, you're almost like a big sponge. Your brain waves are in a state to where anything that you take in just becomes fact. You accept it, and it gets into the mind. Now, how do you know what your programs are? So if you just take a look at your life, look around you, look at the car you're driving, look at the people that you're surrounding yourself with, that is a direct reflection of your subconscious mind. And pretty much if you're thinking what comes easy to you, you have programs in your subconscious mind to support that. If you're trying to do something and it's struggle and struggle and struggle, the programs that you have running are not supportive of that, okay? So I'm going to teach you some of the techniques to be able to reprogram the mind to be able to start to make those things that were more difficult for you start to become a lot more easy, okay? So how do we do that? First thing is repetition, habit. We talked about the car example, right? We're driving along. At first it's really difficult and hard, but after a while, it starts to become second nature. It's really easy. So same thing can happen for anything that we're going through in life. Other ways we could reach into the subconscious mind and start reprogramming the programs is hypnosis, right? You go and you're bringing your body and your brain waves back to that alpha and the theta, those theta brain waves, and getting yourself into a state where you can become more suggestible to different things. So that's why you see somebody that's going in there and they're putting them into a state and they're telling them you're a chicken, and they start walking around like a chicken. It's not exactly like that, but that's the idea behind this, okay? Audios, right? So when audios are things like I have an app on my cell phone from Louise Hay, from Hay House, Louise Hay, and she goes through an affirmation meditation program. We're going to talk a little bit more about affirmations later on, but I'm going to give you a preview of it. An affirmation is something where you tell yourself, I am thankful, I am happy, I am full of joy, I am wealthy, whatever it is you're trying to do. And those thoughts and those beliefs start getting into the subconscious mind over time. Best time to use these is pre and post dream state. In other words, when you're just about to slip into your deep sleep or just rising out of sleep, your brain waves are in a state to where they're more susceptible and more into that ability to transfer information into the subconscious part of your brain. Other things could be energy psychology techniques like tapping. Tapping is the system where you're stimulating different acupressure points in your body. It relaxes the body, again, switching your body to a different type of brainwave pattern. Psych K, or psychological kinesiology, Silva method, different meditations. If you look at Dr. Joe Dispenza, he has a lot of different meditations where you can go into a deep meditative trance and start to get your mind focused off of your body, off of time, off of space, and start to be more susceptible to putting new information into the subconscious mind. So when we're talking about happiness, because a lot of this is just trying to create happiness not trying, but creating happiness inside of our life, is understanding what your stories are. So the story is another synonym for what your blueprint in life is. So if your blueprint, let's say that, for example, I wanted to be, if your goal was to, let's say at 30 years old, I want to be married, I want to have a car, I want to have great relationships in my life, that's your blueprint for how you want your life to be. If your blueprint is equal to your life conditions, in other words, you were thinking about it, I wanted that, and you got it, most likely, you're going to be happy, okay? If your blueprint doesn't equal your life conditions, in other words, oh, I wanted my life to be, I wanted to be married, all that same thing I said, but you didn't get that. Let's say you didn't have that love of your life that you wanted, or you didn't have the kid that you wanted to have, or whatever it is. If it doesn't equal your life, if your life conditions didn't match up with your blueprint, that's a recipe for unhappiness, right? Now here's one minor detail. These things, if you're unhappy, it can change, right? But if you're suffering, you feel like you're helpless, right? You feel like, oh, there's nothing I can absolutely do at all to change the situation I'm in. Therefore, that's going to create suffering in your life, okay? Now, a couple things that won't help for this: complaining and blaming. Those will just further the suffering that you have. In other words, if you're complaining about it, if you're blaming other people, not taking full responsibility for your thoughts, for your life, that's one recipe for suffering, okay? Now, when we talk about the 6 human needs, because the blueprint is based upon what your needs are, okay? So you have a need for certainty, a need for uncertainty, significance. And those are the needs of the body. And this is got taken from Tony Robbins. So if you want more information on this, go ahead and reach out, look into his work. It's great. Needs of the soul: growth, love, contribution. So you're trying to get these needs met, and you do that, and you create a story about how you want to do it. Now, what are your rules for meeting those needs? So that's where a lot of change can actually happen. So if your rules for happiness would be, again, if you're when I'm only going to be happy when I win the lottery, if that's your rule for being happy, you're going to be unhappy for a long time. So what I would suggest that you do, or they say, okay, I'm only going to be happy once I get $1 million home, and once I'm driving a $1 million sports car or whatever. If that is the only thing that's going to make you happy, and you're going to go a long time without that happiness. And a lot of times what you'll find out is, even once you get that, you're going to create the next thing that you need to get and that's when you're going to be happy. Really, the key for this is being happy in the moment, creating the gratitude where you are, and being happy for the things you have. That's the real change that you can make in your mind, which will create the happiness that you're after. Now, one thing I would like everybody to look out for is, what are your rules for, number one, feeling loved, right? How do you feel? How do you know when you're feeling loved, or loving yourself, or being successful? I would like you to sit there and think about what your rules are for those things, and then it would be a good time to start thinking about if they're serving you well, keep them, okay? But if they're not serving you, it's a good time to start thinking about what are some different rules that you could have about meeting your happiness, right? So a good way to create a rule is, anytime I blank, then I feel blank, right? So for me, anytime I love myself, I feel loved. That's it. Anytime, here's an easy one. If I'm above ground, then I'm successful. That's an easy way to make it so that you're feeling successful, okay? Now, one thing that holds a lot of people back in life is their limiting beliefs about themselves, right? So people have limited beliefs about how much they can do, how much they can achieve in life, how much they can affect other people, and what I would recommend in discovering what these limiting beliefs are. Now, I'm going to go ahead and attach a link to this video where you could actually see a number, or I'll actually probably put it in the comments, a number of different things that are limiting beliefs. What you're going to do is you're going to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you agree with these statements. And then those are the ones that you're going to want to work on with different affirmations and reprogramming tools, like we had mentioned with the subconscious reprogramming slide, okay? As I get older, so here's an example. As I get older, I get sicker and sicker and sicker, or my body just breaks down naturally over time. That's a one disempowering belief that you might have. And then we got to start working on creating more empowering beliefs. That's one method. You can look at it that way. Another way you could find a disempowering belief is you write out an area of your life that you feel you're struggling on it. And it's okay to be real in this thing. Write out why you think you're struggling. So, because this is the belief that is holding you back. So in other words, I am struggling because this. That's the belief that you have in your mind that is holding you back, and that's what you're going to want to work on. Write out why you think you believe this. In other words, try to discover the origin of where that came from. Where did this belief come from? Write out what this belief has cost you in life. Now, benefited from it. So because we want to make sure that we understand that our body and our brain is trying to do everything it can to keep us alive in life, obviously. And some of these beliefs were of value at one point, but are no longer serving us. So we want to determine what those things are so that we can move past them and create and grow from there. And ask yourself, are you willing to let that belief go now that you know that it's no longer serving you? Create a new powerful belief that is positive, present, personal, powerful, and pointing to a new possibility. So this is finding out an affirmative statement that you could say to yourself that is going to be moving you towards a new destiny. Now, this is where we're going to talk about brain training. Okay, so now that we have positive beliefs, that we figured out what our negative beliefs are, we have our positive belief that we want to install inside of us. We want to understand that the nerve cells that we have in our brain, if they as long as they continue to fire together, they'll start to wire together. And you're going to choose which thoughts over time with intensity that we're going to be focusing on. Okay? Now, what I want you to understand is there's 3 choices we have at every moment in the power of questions. Empowering versus disempowering. So there's empowering thoughts and there's disempowering thoughts. Now, what we focus on, again, we can't control what happens to us, yet we can control what we focus on, what meaning and metaphors we give things, and what we will do about what has happened. Again, this is from Tony Robbins. Now, what we focus on, we can control. So if we're focusing on what we can control versus what we can't control, that's going to be a big difference in our life. Because if you're continuously focusing on what you can't control, you're going to be focusing on that, and you're not going to be productive in creating something new. Okay. What we have versus what we are missing. Focusing on what we actually have versus what we're missing in our life. What is right in a situation versus what is wrong in a situation. What meaning or metaphors we give things. So let's say you're given a diagnosis, right? Understand your body has the power that made the universe coursing through it, or accept the diagnosis. If a doctor says, hey, you have cancer and you have 2 months to live, I'd say, well, if it was me, I'd say, well, I appreciate your diagnosis, but I'm not going to accept that prognosis, right? I'm going to say, okay, well, I appreciate you letting me know what's going on in my body. I'm going to do everything I can to fight this thing and get better and heal. Is this the end or is this the beginning? So if you're saying, the example that Tony Robbins gives a lot is, in the beginning of a relationship, you're in the beginning of the relationship and your wife tells you to take out the trash. In the beginning, easily, of course, I'll take out the trash. And then later on in your relationship, you're like, she asks you, oh, take out the trash, please. And you're like, what do I look like, your janitor? That's obviously a bad way to approach it, right? So if you always treat that person like it's the beginning of the relationship, it's going to be a completely different life. Life is a gift. Okay, so if you think about this metaphor that we use for the metaphors that we use in our life, right? Life is a blank. If somebody thinks that life is a test versus it's a gift, they're going to have completely different experiences in life, right? They're going to always feel like they're being judged or watched over if they think it's a test. But if they think life's just a gift, they're going to be more appreciative of it, right? Or let's say they think that life is a dance, right? They think that, if life is a dance, you can go through it and it's creative and imaginative and you could work with it in different ways. So you want to think about what the meaning of your life is and what do you want your footprint to be and what is the metaphor that you give yourself for your life. Make sure it's a powerful one. If you think God is punishing me versus God is testing me, right? Versus God is teaching me something, these are all going to create different experiences inside of our body. or life is unfold. One belief that I have about life is that life is constantly unfolding for me, right? If you feel like life is unfolding for you and is happening for you in the best way possible, you're gonna have a different experience. Even if you don't know that's true, it's a better belief to have, and it's more empowering than, I'm being punished constantly, right? It's completely different. Can someone else make us feel, because here's an interesting thing. A lot of people, when they're going through life, they feel like, they say, oh, you made me feel a certain way. Let's say that they did something that was harmful to you. You say, you made me feel bad. When in essence, we are the ones that are ultimately in control of how we feel. If somebody, let's say, flipped you off when you're going in the car, you could be like, oh my God, now I'm going to have a terrible day, and their whole day is ruined because of it. Versus, you could say, oh, they flipped you off. Oh, I feel so bad for that person, and they're having such a terrible time. I really hope that they are feeling better soon, right? And your body the whole time, it's completely fine. So really important you think about understanding that you have the ultimate control on how you feel. A good example of this, if you look at this book called Man's Search for Meaning, it's a man that goes through a concentration camp, and it talks about his demeanor and his thoughts and his beliefs during that time, and how it actually shaped and altered the way his body was, but also altered and shaped just his mentality, or it shaped the way that he got through that experience. So understanding, and so he was saying, when I go through this experience, I'm going to make it so that when I get out, I'm going through this experience, so when I get out of here, I'm going to impact and help so many people in so many different ways. So the thoughts and the mentality that he had changed him and altered him through that situation. Now, the last thing that we have is with inner control is what we're going to do about what happens. Again, I gave you an example earlier of, instead of when somebody flips you off in the car, you say, you could just go on and have a great day. That's what you're going to do if you bless that person, right? Versus if you're like getting all angry on it, there's a possibility that you're going to go get some road rage and go after them and start trying to track them down and beat them up or something, right? Completely different experiences based upon what is completely in your control. You have the ability to take massive action or just sit idly by. You can give up on yourself or become resourceful. You can forgive somebody, like I mentioned, or hold a grudge. Now, when you hold a grudge on somebody, if you think about what emotion you're holding onto, it's one of anger and frustration. What kind of experience is your body going through if you're holding on to anger or hurt over something that somebody else did to you? I promise you, it's not hurting that person anymore. Your hurt that you're feeling and that anger that you're having and that grudge that you have against that person, it's not hurting that person at all. It's only hurting you. And you have to live inside of that body. So you want to make sure that if you have somebody like that, please forgive them, right? Find out and maybe do some journaling on it, finding out exactly who are the people that I'm holding grudges against, and am I able to forgive them? You could forgive them to their face, or you could just simply say, I forgive you, and let it go. It really doesn't matter. As long as you let go of that emotion, that's what the difference in your body is going to be. So here's just some common disempowering words and phrases that people I hear a lot, and I'm guilty of some of these myself. And these are things that I'm constantly working on to better my life. So disempowering thoughts are I should do something versus I will do something, or I'm committed to doing something. I might go there tomorrow, or I should start eating better, or I should start working out. Yeah, those are super, super disempowering. And of course, if you say that, you're not going to end up doing it. If somebody says, I'm not good at something, so I'm not good at that, versus I am currently improving this aspect. Oh, I have to go, or here's another one. I have to go to work. Well, you could say I get to go to work, right? I have to clean the lawn. I get to clean the lawn. I have a house that I am actually able to take care of. It's a different way of looking at your life. I can't do something versus I can, right? I'll try versus I commit to doing that, right? I don't have enough time, money, whatever the resources. If you're constantly saying you don't have enough of something, the ultimate resource is resourcefulness, right? If you could be resourceful and say, I will find the resources to do that thing, or if you don't want to do it, just say, it's not a priority for me. I don't want to do that, right? Versus making an excuse about something, saying, oh, I don't have enough of this. That's a lack mindset. I'm overwhelmed versus I'm in demand. This is a huge problem versus this is a huge challenge or opportunity. I failed at something. It's just literally, it might be the same experience that happened to you, but one is empowering versus one is disempowering, right? If you feel like you failed at something, yeah, it might not have turned out the way that you wanted to, but you learned from it, okay? Just a different way of looking at it. I lost my something, or versus I'm searching for. I'm confused about something, or versus I'm about to learn about, okay? I am sorry. This is for the people that are constantly saying, I'm sorry for every little thing. Versus, so like, let's say that you're running a few minutes late to a meeting. Say, they come in and say, I'm so sorry. Versus, thank you for waiting for me, or thank you for telling me something. The but versus and. This is for somebody like, let's say you're giving somebody a compliment. I really appreciate you, but as soon as you say but, that whatever you just said beforehand gets most in that person's ears gets wiped out. Okay, you could say, I really appreciate you, and I think that we could do better at this. They still heard you in that first sentence. Okay. Some people are trying to get through the day. I want to get through this. I want to get through this day. Don't try to get through the day. Try to get from the day, right? Try to get as much out of that day that you possibly can. And I'm going to talk more about that in a second. My insert problem here versus the problem. So for somebody that's dealing with a bodily issue, right? My sciatica is always bothering me, or my diabetes. As soon as you take possession of that disease or that whatever that is, you start embodying it. You start to have more of it, and you take ownership of it. Versus you say, oh, the sciatica that's currently happening. It's a small tweak, but your brain starts to say, oh, well, it's not supposed to last, right? So it can actually change and alter the course of your body. And better than that is to say, I'm currently taking the steps necessary to change whatever that sciatica or to make my leg feel great, right? So it's a big difference in the way that we think. Just some empowering beliefs that positive, happy people have, right? We are all connected, and what is best for one person will benefit from the whole. So that's the same thing as you want others to succeed. You want to live the golden rule, do unto others as you want to have done unto you. Limit the amount of people in life that opinions truly matter to you, okay? The reason I say this is because if you're trying to constantly please everyone, you're never going to do it, right? You're never going to be able to please every single person that you're coming in contact with. These successful people are busy, right? They're doing stuff. They're trying to create. They're creating a new life. Oh, just a real quick tidbit. Notice how every once in a while I catch myself saying try. I might try to do something. That's one of those disempowering words, right? So if I do that, I just quickly change it. Or you could, if you hear yourself say that stuff, you say change, and then you say, you put the new word, the new empowering word right in front of it. Just throw that in there. These people are busy, not rushed, and they don't sweat the small stuff, right? So little things, and guess what? It's all small stuff. So little things happen to you in life, it rolls off your shoulder, okay? These people also reward themselves regularly in a healthy way. So when I say reward yourself, it doesn't mean I'm going to go, let's say I did something really good. I got, whatever it was I was trying to accomplish. It doesn't mean I'm going to go like, oh, I did awesome. I'm going to go drink like a bunch of alcohol or whatever. I'm going to go eat like a big cake because I deserve it. That's not a healthy way to treat your body, especially if you think of your body as a temple. If you, again, a metaphor for your body could be, my body is a sacred temple, right? If you think of your body like a temple, are you going to be pouring booze into it? Are you going to be, treating it disrespectfully? Are you going to be thinking negative thoughts about your body? Of course not. It's going to be a completely different relationship that you have with it. So healthy ways to reward yourself: do something you enjoy, right? Sing, shake your butt, right? Dance a little bit, pat yourself on the back, like, oh, I did really good today. Give yourself a nice pat on the back. These are a healthy meal, right? Understand, don't take yourself too seriously. You are a human who is not perfect. Don't expect yourself to be, and show yourself some love, right? This is about stop waiting for the weekend to be happy. A lot of people, I take care of a lot of people, and a lot of people I come in contact with, they say, I can't wait till it's Saturday, I can't wait to that whole get through the day or get through the week or whatever. This is I did some math on this, just kind of figure out like how that actually affects you. The average lifespan is 78 years in America, right? So that's 28,470 days. Now, if you work or in school until you're 60, that's 21,900 days of your life that you're in work or school. Now, if you complain about Monday through Friday, right, and you're just waiting for Saturday, that's 15,549 days of your life, or 55% of your entire life that you've spent complaining. Now, you can think about what is the alternative to that, right? You could go through life and you could say, every day is a blessing. Versus, the alternative to going of complaining about your life is being dead, right? That could be another alternative. Now, this is super important, right? Stand guard at the doorstep of your mind. You really have to pay attention to what's going into your mind, because that's what's really feeding into that subconscious mind, right? Very, very powerful. So if you look at just turning on the television, negative content, right? Social media, you're going on there, you're scrolling through, you're seeing everybody's perfect lives that they've put on there. Or let's say you have somebody that's constantly posting negative news, right? This is a practical example. You could take on, let's say on Facebook, and you could turn off that person's feed so you don't see any of that information coming into you. So what I did with my social media, or my Facebook, I took people that were constantly posting negative news, and I just remove them, so that when I go on, I have these other people that are constantly posting positive information, great stuff to change their lives. That's what I want to focus on, and so that's what I am putting into my subconscious mind when I go on there. And I don't do it very often though. Dopamine depletion, looking for pleasure outside of ourselves, right? The other thing, so if you're looking at the news, so news and negative, let's look like CNN, constant negative news. What ends up happening, particularly if you're watching this stuff closer to bedtime, that information again going straight into the subconscious mind, and you're starting to get an altered view of the world. So if you turn on the news, just an example, it would say, there was 2 stabbings last night in Los Angeles, versus they never reported the 15,000 positive random acts of kindness that happened that same time. Why is that? Because they know that the information that sells is often negative, because our minds are trying to keep us alive. Okay, so we're going to focus in on that negative news, which is going to sell whatever their particular television programming is for you. Now, when you watch TV, what ends up happening is you get this thing called the orienting response that happens. It puts your brain waves from beta into alpha. It literally makes you more suggestible. So particularly when you're looking at the commercials, right? They're telling you they show this picture of this person, they're not feeling good and they're unhealthy, and so that's a program that's actually going into your mind saying, oh, I'm unhealthy, or I'm not feeling good, and then they put right there the sale, right? This drug, or this this beer, or this shirt, or whatever it is, will change whatever that feeling that you have. So that's one way that can do it. So you want to avoid all of that altogether. Okay. Negative people can be also what you're surrounding yourself with, right? So if you're constantly surrounding yourself with negative people, it's going to have the same type of response inside of your body, or a different, same type of response inside of your body in terms of that. Understanding that if you look at this thing called mirror neurons, if you're seeing, there's these neurons that are in the back of your brain that when you see somebody, and let's say that they smile, okay, you oftentimes want to smile with them. The reason for that is you have these neurons, which when they smile, it lights up and parts of your body want to do the same thing. The same thing can be true for somebody that's negative, right? So if you're seeing somebody that's sad or depressed and they're constantly telling you negative things, that's going to start feeding into your subconscious mind and start activating those mirror neurons in your body, and it's literally going to start changing the way that your mind works. So although it might be difficult, severing the contacts, or just, let's say it is your family, okay? You want to spend less time with those family members that are more negative and more time with people that are more positive, okay? Negative self-talk, we talked a lot about that already. Constant distractions, right? So if people are going through their day and they're constantly being bombarded with, let's say the news and let's say your emails coming up, you're constantly feeling like you can't focus on anything, and that's a negative way that your mind will start to change. Important to understand this concept here, the power of posture, smiling, and laughter. So they've discovered that the way that you carry yourself, the way you carry your body, the way you smile, the way you talk, the tempo of your voice, all of those things can actually alter your mind and your happiness levels, right? So they did this study here. They just did a meta-analysis of all what's called facial feedback literature. In other words, all the studies that they were looking at with people that smile and what happens to their brain, they found out that when you smile, guess what? Things certain neurochemistry starts to change inside your brain, which positively affect your health. So you can look that study up. Also, when it comes to just posture, I like to give this example of what's his name, the dog whisperer, right? So Cesar Millan, he found these dogs that were, every once in a while he'd get this dog that would be very shy or timid. And what does a dog do when they're shy or timid? They tuck their legs between their tails, and then they're, really sad, and, so what this guy did was he started taking their tails, lifting it up, and after a while, the dog starts to wag around, starts to get more happy, starts to become more friendly with the other dogs around it. And that's just understanding how your posture can actually affect your body and your psychology. So you could use this to your benefit. If you ever thought about somebody that was sad or depressed, you could probably mimic what they would look like, right? Where would their head be? It'd be like this, right? How would they breathe? They'd be really breathing shallow. They would be in a sad, slumped over state. Versus somebody that was happy, they'd be more standing erect, happy, smiling, right? All these good things that we want to see. So you could use that to your advantage. If you're trying to, let's say you're going to go in for like a job interview, they've done studies that people that, give themselves with these power poses, standing with your arms out like this, Superman, whatever it is, Wonder Woman, these poses that are nice and strong and powerful can actually put your mind in a completely different state, raise testosterone levels, do all these wonderful things inside of your body, right? So those are things to try. Here's some other ways to make sure that you're having a very healthy life is do healthy activities daily that help you express your creativity. A lot of people nowadays in society they're so busy in the hustle and bustle of their life that they don't take time to focus on the creativity or creating something that's either artistic or musical or something like that. That would be something that you'd want to do. So like 10 minutes a day, if you like to play guitar, play a little guitar and actually express your artistic side, right? Take regular breaks, vacations. So I like to shoot for at least 4 weekends a year and 2 week-long vacations every year, okay? Stress relieving activities like massage, aromatherapy, float tanks, hiking, walks, acupuncture, these are all really good things to start to just kind of shift into what's called a more parasympathetic state, or that relaxed state that we talked about earlier. Spend time with people and in community with other people. They've done studies on people that have lived they're in these places called blue zones that live long, healthy lives. Part of it, they eat right, they exercise, but one of the big things that they found of these groups of people, these blue zones, is that they are in community with other people, and they spend time in these tight-knit structures. So again, really, really great that, as a society and as a species, we're designed to actually be in communion with other people. Decluttering. I think this is also something that's really good for just your positive mental attitude and just kind of keeping this brain working well. Declutter, then organize your life and to live like a minimalist, right? If I look at this closet over here, right? We have one closet that's completely disheveled and unorganized versus this one here, which is completely organized and put together properly. One of them actually just gives me a little bit of anxiety itself, and the other one doesn't, okay? So we want to create, the idea behind this minimalist stuff is to create more space in your life for what matters to you, okay? So how do we do this, and how is this practical in your life? Some of the rules are, if you're living in a house and you have a bunch of duplicates of something, and let's say you don't use it, it has no purpose, why do you have it? Why are you holding on to that? You want to get rid of that stuff and to make room for stuff that in your life which is going to be more beneficial for you and actually serve a purpose for your life. Okay. Here's some other rules. Have I used this in the last 90 to 120 days? And do you think you'll use it in the next 90 to 100 days, right? 120 days? If you don't use it, of course, why are you holding on to this thing? A simple rule for this one is it's called the 20-20 rule. If you think, oh, you're holding on to this thing because I may need it one day in the future, right? So the rule would be the 20-20 rule. Can I find it for under $20 within 20 minutes, right? So if you can find it with under 20 bucks in 20 minutes, and it's just sitting there taking up space in your life, I'd say get rid of it, okay? Does this item bring you joy? So if that same item brings you joy, just to look at it, keep it, absolutely. Live life with your calendar, okay? This is just something really, really good, is if you're not living off of a calendar or actually understand, like having, set examples of times you need to be in certain places, you're going to oftentimes double book yourself. You're going to be constantly worried about, like, what am I doing tomorrow? What's going on? And you're kind of trying to keep this list in your head. Your head is not really designed to plan out the life like that, right? That's why we developed writing, and nowadays we have technology for a phone or something like that, which can do these same things. Make lists. Get any of your to-dos out of your head. Here's a nice fun thing to completely change. Oftentimes you're looking at these things in your home that are these little tiny annoyances that you've never taken the time to actually fix these things. I like the Christmas Story. Every time the dad walks up the stairs, he has the rail post, and every time he walks by it comes off, right? And he's like, and he puts it back down and walks upstairs. And then the next day he has to show him do it again. He gets angry. That repetition, number one, that anger emotion. Number two, you're feeling kind of defeated because you've never taken the time to actually affect that, and so you almost feel like you're not useful or not helpful in it. So I like to do this: take 10 things in your life that are those little small bother things, particularly around your environment you spend a lot of time in, and fix them. Take one weekend, fix as many of those things as you can. You'll feel productive, you'll feel happy, and every time you go up that stairs, you're gonna be, you'll be feeling a lot happier that you actually took care of that situation. I was talking about thought congruency. If thoughts are incongruent with our values or our ideal self, they'll represent a negative thought and will lead to stimulation of the stress response. Versus if that thoughts are congruent with our values in your vision of your ideal self, that will act as a nutrient in your body, okay? So I was mentioning earlier. So, I want to talk about that in terms of a value exercise, okay? So what we were just mentioning. So what you could do is write out 8 important characteristics that you feel are most important in an ideal person. So let's say that your ideal person is happy, is passionate, you're loving, caring, joyful, whatever these things are, you rate yourself, you're thinking of that ideal person, you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on those traits. Are you living out those best lives, right? Then those are the things that you're going to want to focus on actually acting out every single day in different ways, whether we're going to talk about affirmations, visualizations, we're going to talk about meditation, all these things that you're going to want to focus on. These are the things that you're going to want to incorporate into those meditations, affirmations, and visualizations, okay? But one thing you can do before that is actually just set timers and set reminders and triggers in your daily life that's going to remind you to act out and to live that way. So how do we do that, right? So let's say that you have a trigger that every time you're in line, you're grateful, right? Most people, when they go into a line, they're like, oh man, I gotta wait in this line. They start to shrug their shoulders or whatever, right? If you could change that to every time you're standing in line, I'm grateful, or I'm going to count things that I'm thankful for, or I'm going to take this time to be thankful or to be joyful, or whatever those values are, to be courageous or whatever. It's going to alter that situation, and you don't actually have to do anything to have that value or that emotion show up. Just feel it inside your body. Feel that emotion. Now, here's another good one. Anytime someone asks you how you are, you have an opportunity to express one of your values, right? So think about your response, and can it be more powerful? Most people, the response, like say, somebody asks you, how are you doing today? And you say, oh, okay, right? Or I'm fine. Well, that's the general response that a lot of people give, right? If you were checking out at the grocery store and they say, hey, how are you doing? And it's a lot of times they're not even really they don't really even care that much. It's just they just want to make small talk. You say, you know what? I feel here. Instead of that, say, I am blessed and thankful to be alive. That's a completely different response that you're gonna get, and a lot of time, and it's gonna make you feel good, and it's gonna probably change or brighten somebody else in front of you too, which I think is powerful. The 90-second rule. What is the 90-second rule? So if you not when you drop it, 2-second rule, and you drop some food and put it back in your mouth. Not that. I'm talking about the 90-second rule when you're talking about emotions, right? Anytime you find yourself in a negative emotion, give yourself 90 seconds to stay in that negative emotion. Now you want to actually feel it, right? So you have that negative emotion, feel it, because emotions are not either good or bad. All they are is action signals or responses telling your body that either you should change something, it should change something in your life, okay? So if you have that negative emotion, let's say you're feeling sad, just feel the sadness and say, okay, I'm gonna give myself 90 seconds to feel this sadness, and then I'm gonna change, right? I'm gonna change back to feeling happy or grateful or whatever that emotion that you're trying to go towards is, right? In the beginning, if you're trying to practice this rule, it might, your 90-second rule might be 1 day, right? Or so your 1 day rule. You say, okay, well, I'm going to give myself today to grieve or to feel sad or whatever that is, and then I'm going to work on and creating a new experience inside of my life or a new emotion. There we go. This is a fun way to actually handle emotions that you are dealing with, and a way to relay that information or those emotions to other people and to express your needs. So this is Mr. Marshall Rosenberg. He created a course or a book called Nonviolent Communication, and it's a really, really great resource. I'd recommend that you look into it. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he talks about, but I think there's a really lot of good information, particularly when it deals with expressing your emotions and your needs, as well as having empathy for other people and in a way that is conducive to good outcomes. So the idea behind this, you have an observation, and the idea really is all of us do things in our life to meet a need, okay? So whatever that need be, okay? Now you express how your observation, what you're feeling, what the need is that's not being met, and then you ask a request, right? So I feel blank because I have a need for blank, which is or is not being met. Would you be willing to blank? So an example would be, let's say that you came home and you wanted some affection from your partner. Okay, so you got home and your partner is there, and let's say that they're kind of like they're just watching television or something. Okay, and you feel angry because that person, like, they're not paying attention to you, or they're not giving you the love that you feel like that you want or need. So one way to express that is to say, you never pay attention to me. That's going to create, and that person's like going to say, oh, of course I do. Of course I pay attention to you. And it's not a really good communication that's going to happen between the two people. Versus you go to that person and say, hey, look, I've been feeling, when I get home and, you're just sitting on the couch and watching television, I feel sad because I have a need for connection, okay, with you. Okay, that's a human emotion, or one of those needs that we talked about, right? Connection. I have a need for connection. I have a need for love, and it's not being met. Would you be willing to, when I get home, have a conversation with me or love? Now, the idea is you're not really trying to force that person to change. All you're trying to, because we don't have control over other people. So all you're trying to do is just get them to understand what your needs are better, in a better way to do it. And that's going to, usually it's going to create a much better response from that person. So this is something that I really think is a powerful tool to use. It's also a great way to show empathy for somebody, right? So, let's say that husband was maybe he was thinking about it, he was thinking about their needs, and he realized, like, hey, every time my wife gets home, I'm just sitting here watching television, right? And I'm not really paying attention to her. So, and she's sad, right? And so he asks her, he says, hey, when you're feeling, when you're over here, do you feel sad because you're needing me to, you're needing connection? And would you like me to spend more time with you when you get home? It's just a way of finding out and kind of probing to understand, like, where the problem is in that. It's a really powerful tool. I think a lot of people can use it. All right. Here's some other healthy ways to blow off steam. Okay. So we have yelling. So sometimes this is actually a very powerful way to get out negative energy in your life. So let it out in a healthy way and let it go. Do not bury or repress your emotions. This is part of primal therapy. So if you look this up, they were showing these people that were neurotic people, and they went through these processes in therapy when at a certain point in the therapy they started just screaming and yelling, and afterwards they were no longer neurotic. So this is something that you can do on a small scale. If you're feeling anger, feeling like super frustrated, instead of bottling it up all inside, let it out. Scream as loud as you can, right? Scream to rock music. Go to a rock show and just yell. Scream into a pillow. Go into the woods and scream. You can go into these little places now where you could actually pay somebody to grab some stuff and start breaking it, right? Something just to get out all this energy inside your body. I actually think it's a very healthy thing to do. So use that. All right. Now let's talk about some of these really, really powerful tools to help to retrain your subconscious mind, right? So meditation. Meditation is wonderful. I mentioned Joe Dispenza earlier in his meditation app. There's other really cool apps called Calm. There's Insight Timer. There's a lot of good apps that you could use to guide yourself and guide your meditation, right? And I use that kind of like as training wheels, these guided meditations. When you're just learning how to meditate, you're getting the hang of it. After a while, if you no longer want them or use them, you could absolutely just kind of remove that, so you no longer have to use them and just use your own mind for those tools. And meditation really is just training the mind in order to receive a benefit or as an end itself, right? So some of the great benefits of it: increasing focus, limiting fear, decreasing stress and anxiety, increased immune function, improved fertility, improved creativity. You could do the, again, guided, which is this, or individual. You want to find a comfortable seated position or lying position, quiet the mind down, focus on breath, word, something that you want to be, focus on a sound, be in the moment. So meditation you can get into and start visualizing, which we'll talk about in a second, your ideal self or your ideal person. Gratitude. It is not happiness that brings us gratitude. It's gratitude that brings us happiness. So that's the other way to look at it. Here, I love this quote. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It can turn a meal into a into a feast, a house into a home, a stranger into a friend. Just changes everything you see. It's this concept of what you're constantly thankful. If you're thinking about it, that's what you bring more about. So if you're thankful, you're going to bring more things into your life that are thankful. Now you're training subconscious mind to seek out what you're thankful for or grateful for. Now, if you combine meditation and gratitude together, this is what happens, okay? So this is the Heart Math Institute. So right here, you have the heart and the EKG. So in other words, the way that the heart's beating and the way that the brain is thinking and their brain waves, right? You could see in a state of frustration, the brain waves and the heart waves are completely scattered into different ways. They took people and they walked them through this meditation where you're focusing on your heart and what you're grateful for. And what they found was that those things start to sync up. Your brain, in other words, your brain and your mind and your heart are starting to match up their frequencies, and it's a much more powerful way to focus your body and focus your energies. This has been shown to reduce stress, feel positive and focused, calm and energized, and perform your best. It accesses creativity and problem solving because when your heart and your mind are centered and together, you're able to be more creative and access different parts of your brain, which will give you answers for problems that you've been searching for. So how do we do this? So heart-focused breathing, in other words, you sit there, and there's meditations online that you could look up for these things as well. Like you just look up heart math meditation. But you start by putting your hand on your heart, feeling your heart, right? Focusing on it. You'll close your eyes to shut out any of the outside sensory information. You imagine breathing going into the heart. You breathe slowly and deeply, and then you just start thinking about what you're thankful for. You can start by just being thankful for your heart, right? I'm thankful for the way that my heart beats. It's been beating my whole life, right? These things that you're creating this positive feeling. And you do that for a sustained period of time, and over time, again, that starts to sync up your life in a good direction there. All right. Here's a good exercise you could do. I like to do gratitude journaling literally every single morning. Write down 3 things that you're thankful for, but you could also write down 3 things that you're thankful for or want to be thankful for every single day, right? So I'm thankful for this new car, if you're like after a car or whatever. I'm thankful for this car that I've already received, right? When they asked Jesus how to pray, they said something along the lines of, believe that you've already, when you pray for something, believe that you've already received it, right? So this is part of those thoughts. Whatever you believe about in terms of that doesn't necessarily matter, but the wisdom is there, okay? You will be a failure until you impress the subconscious mind with conviction you are a success, right? So you're just changing your subconscious mind. So an affirmation is a sentence that you speak to yourself in order to train your subconscious mind in a positive way. So let's say, some of these, or our lives are shaped by our beliefs, and our beliefs are shaped by our thoughts. So these are some great affirmations that you can say to yourself. You start with, I am safe, I am allowing, I am unlimited, I am vibration, I am harmony, I'm full of life, I'm inspired, I'm healthy, whatever it is. You say these things to yourself, and you want to do it to where you actually feel the emotion of these things. You're training your subconscious mind. I like to do these in the morning or at nighttime before you start your day, or if you have something that like an interview or something that's important coming up, I'm powerful, I'm successful, whatever it is, your mind will start to take in that information and you'll start to act that way. So how do you create an affirmation? You take an area of your life, so whether it be your health, relationships, finance, business, happiness, you write out a positive quality about yourself. So I am happy, or write out what you want to accomplish. I am happy because I have accomplished this, right? or write out why you want it. I am happy because I've accomplished this, because it's going to help me. It's going to help me in this way. And you write out whom you're willing to become, and I'm willing to become this person or do these things to get it. And step 5, what are you committed to doing to get it, right? That's just one way to start with this. Read it aloud every day, feel the emotions, connect to the words, carry them with you, write them out every day, and obviously take action on these things, right? Visualization, another powerful tool to help to create and manifest things in your life, right? Dare to visualize a world in which you most treasured dreams have become true. Process by which before you try something or before you're practicing something, you close your eyes and experience yourself doing this thing. A lot of sports teams use this tool and this tactic. It's actually been shown very proven successful in creating changes not only in your body but your life. So one experiment that you can actually see that shows how this type of training works is they took these people. They had one group of people practicing like a scale, okay, on a piano, and they were measuring their brain waves and their brain function. And so what they were doing over time, they saw that they took one group, again, they had them practice it. They took another group that had them sit there and just visualize themselves practicing the scale over and over for about like an hour, same amount of time that the people that were actually practicing were using. They had a third group, which they just told them to just sit there and do whatever. It doesn't matter. You're just here just to hang out, right? What they found out was the people that were doing the physical practice, they had measurable changes in their brainwave patterns over time, also with their finger flexors and finger extensors. For mental practice, they got very, very similar, almost exact changes in their brain patterns and their brain functions over time as well. The control, no changes were seen. What does this mean? If you focus on and you visualize yourself doing or accomplishing a specific task or pattern, literally can change your mind and can change your brain and also alter the reticular activating system inside your mind there. Create a vision board, right? So the vision board is just a way to visually see what your goals are, visually see what you're trying to get in life, whether it be how you want to act, how you want to be. Write out what you would like to have accomplished in the next 5 years, in all areas of your life. Write out steps to accomplish the goals, and then write out the purpose behind them. Print out pictures that inspire you and represent the goals. Make a collage, or you can go on there's ways that you can go online. You could actually make movies about these things. You could add music to it. Because remember I was talking to you about that reflex, where if you're watching something, it actually puts your brain waves into a more relaxed state. You could make that same thing happen, but use things that you want in your life to be accomplished, okay? Spend 5 minutes daily reading and mentally rehearsing these things, at least, okay? Journaling, another powerful tool to use in organizing your thoughts and understanding just more about your life. Allows you to organize your thoughts, problem solve, and clear your mind, right? Great way to be creative, and a great way to ask yourself is focusing questions. This is how I like to journal, is asking focused questions, right? So things like, what am I grateful for? I told you about that one earlier. What would make today a great day? 3 amazing things that happened today or yesterday. What could I have done to make today or yesterday better, right? So if you're looking at your life, you're saying, okay, well, I did this today. I don't really like the way I acted when I came home and I was with my wife. Tomorrow, this is how I'm going to change. And you write like how you could have made it better. If today was my last day on earth, how would I want to show up? And I like to remind myself, today could be the last day of your life, so you might as well make the best of it, right? What inspiration or information do you need, right? And from who? Did I sleep well? What was my dreams? What area of my life do I need more focus on? What is an action that I have been putting off that I would dramatically increase the quality of your life, right? So if you know there's that one thing, imagine you ask yourself this every day, what have I been putting off that can completely change my life tomorrow or today, right? If you took action on that, how would it change your life? What is something new you learned yesterday? What advice would your past self or your future self give you right now, right? So one exercise you could do is you think about, okay, like, if I've accomplished and I've seen myself and I've done all the things that I've wanted to do and I wanted to accomplish and who I wanted to be and the relationships I wanted to have, what would that person tell me today, right? What would they tell me to do or to be or to act? Because you have the information, all that you need inside your mind. It's just a way of accessing that information. Or you could ask your younger self, right? So let's say that like 10 years ago, you were just like the most outspoken go-getter that there was, but now you're more shy and more timid. What would that person tell you today to be, right? It's a fun way to access this information that is powerful for change. Another way to be happy, right? Go out into nature. Studies have been proven on this, that the more 100 articles which show how nature can decrease stress levels, increase your calm, increase your generosity, cooperation. One of the ways that it works is the earth actually has an electronegative charge, which actually gives your body energy, particularly if you take off your shoes and feel that vibration, get close to the ground, right? These are the miraculous healing steps. So people that have made these miraculous turnarounds in whether they had terminal cancer or whatever, number one, they accepted that there is a force of creation in this world and we can use it to heal our bodies, right? In chiropractic, we call that innate intelligence. You can call it whatever you like. Accept that the thoughts that we have thought and the actions we have taken are responsible for your condition, right? So the thoughts that you're thinking actually can change you. How you've been living, how you've been acting has created whatever that is. It's not just your genes, right? Decide to change and rehearse the new outcome. So what we've talked about, right? Getting into that meditative state, visualizing yourself as that new person. Pay attention so well that we lose track of time and space. Feel so good inside that you don't care about the disease, and that's when it actually goes away. That's the literal death of the old self and rebirth. Now, I wanted to talk just a slight bit about some of the traditional medical approach for people that are dealing with, anxiety or depression. The traditional medical approach would be to, give, a medication. So I think some people actually can benefit for short periods of time for these things, but in long term, it's not the best. Antidepressants, right? Common side effects including nausea, increased appetite, loss of sexual desire, fatigue, insomnia, dry mouth. They've done studies where it's been linked to mania, suicidal thoughts, you name it. So especially with so many people in this society where we're seeing all these people going in and shooting up places. It's just am I saying it's the only thing that's causing these people to do these things? No, but we want to watch out for anything that's going to create people to be more homicidal or more suicidal. Makes sense to me. All right, here's a challenge that actually can, I think set 7-day challenge. I'd like to just give it all to you guys. It takes 33 minutes a day to complete it. So these are it's kind of a summary of what we've been talking about, right? No negative thoughts or disempowering words. If you have one, simply erase it, right? Say change it and say what you really meant. Discover your rules for happiness, create new ones if needed, right? Heart coherence meditation daily. Do some tapping, 5 minutes. Smile at yourself in the mirror daily with the power pose. Okay, so just literally smile. Look at yourself in the mirror and smile. Write down 3 things you are thankful for. Do your affirmations in affirmation meditation. Read your daily values and set your reminders to go off a couple times a day. Use your new how are you response. So in other words, if somebody asks you, how are you doing? You say, I'm powerful and great, or whatever you've decided. And then perform your visualization. And that takes 5 minutes. Again, that takes 33 minutes to do, and it'll literally change your life. Here's some great resources. I had mentioned some of these earlier. The Miracle Morning, I definitely recommend that as a good read. It's just a way to incorporate, because one of the most common challenges that people come up with when I'm telling them, do some meditation or do visualization or whatever, it's, I don't have a time for it. But what he suggests is, carving out time, wake up earlier than you normally would wake up. If you can't, if it's really, really difficult for you to wake up early, you could space it out through the day. But Miracle Morning is a great way you combine the meditation, the affirmations, the visualizations, the journaling, all those things into one morning routine. It's a great way to start your day. I mentioned Tony Robbins. Bob Proctor talks a lot about the science behind this positive mental attitude and how it affects the quantum field. Jack Canfield, Brendon Burchard, Oprah Winfrey. I mentioned nonviolent communication. Music that you can listen to that is positive and inspiring. Brother James, so he just creates positive, uplifting, inspiring music. Same as like Jason Mraz comes up with a lot of really powerful, inspiring music. So just want more resources and information that's going into your mind, because if you're listening to negative music or that's with negative content, that's going to go into your subconscious mind and shape the way that your life goes out as well. And a really cool book is called Working with the Law. Talks about, again, a lot of these laws of the universe and how they actually relate to your life. So thank you guys very much. Talk to you soon.